I'm alarmed at the fact that in my 54 years of life, I've never been awakened or alarmed by a news story of white boys and men being killed at the rate that African Americans and Latinos are being killed by our police departments all across this nation. While we typically focus on health, as I said, and education, we are now given reason to pause and focus on police brutality after the Michael Brown shooting. The police response to peaceful protesters there as well has caused us great concern with the number of military-style vehicles and weapons that they've used to suppress the crowd. In just the past month, 4 black men have been killed by police around the country. Eric Gardner in New York with a chokehold, John Crawford in Ohio shot while at Walmart, and Michael Brown in Ferguson, and Ezell Ford in LA 2 weeks ago, a mentally challenged young man who everyone in that community says the police knew was no threat to anyone. These are not isolated incidents, and we're charged through the Legislative Black Caucus and this legislative body to find critical solutions to this.
This is an American problem. It's not our problem alone. It belongs to each one of us here. Each one of you who has a child that you want to grow up in a global economy and to be proficient in a global economy, you need to stop now. I'm not going to hold any more protests because they don't get anywhere. We need you all to do the hard lifting, to put some laws in place, to look at the Policeman Bill of Rights, to look at things that might be unconstitutional and do something about it.
One of the individuals who testified was a police chief of a local police department. And he says, my son has come of age. He's 16. And before I teach him how to drive, I'm going to have to teach him how to react if and when stopped by a police officer. That police chief was black. And he says, my white counterparts do not have to teach their kids how to react when the police stop them and pull them over. Many of them will say, why are you stopping me for? He says, I told my son to put your hands visibly up on the steering wheel, if not outside the car. And here's a kid who has grown up in a law enforcement household. His father's a police chief, and he has to teach his kids how to deal with his fellow men and women in law enforcement. That in itself is troubling. And that is a telltale sign that this system is broken and needs to be corrected. When you have an African-American police chief says, I have to teach my son something different than my white counterparts.